think this one belongs to this one.
Alright, so for example, we have
Is that your microphone for this one? Yeah.
as to where is it going? What is the future of Iran? And should the Western countries like America and England get involved? What should be their role? And Britain politicians has made it quite clear that the way forward is some kind of reconciliation or ceasefire or truce or to make peace. They have a more peacemaking tone. What is your views on it?
I would love it if they could make peace. Because I don't feel like war really brings that much good except innovation.
Okay.
War brings innovation. It's like a dick measuring contest, to be honest. Honestly, everyone has to come up with the best nuclear weapon, the best whatever, just to get out on top, and that's it. You know?
But
if there was
do you
no
think-
war, there would be no the innovation would.
Besides
not be that
innovation,
much.
wars sell huge amount of weapons.
Exactly. That's
And just as a person can hire a hitman
yeah,
to fight someone, to stab someone, to shoot someone, to kill someone,
yeah,
governments in the world history has taken contracts to fight for others, alliances,
Yeah.
to make alliances.
Yeah.
And in those alliances, there's financial gains. So we
Okay.
have a crisis now with Israel, Iran, the West. What do you see as the financial aspect of it? Who is profiting from all these military artilleries being utilized? Who is profiting from it?
Oh, who's profiting? I mean, do you think that it has to do with the fact that it just drags on?
If it drags on, if the war drags on, right, it means two things. Number one, war dragging on is to drain someone else's resources. And the
Yeah.
war dragging on is means to say, the longer the war keeps on, I profit financially. Right. So it could have multiple
How is it-
multiple benefits.
But when you fund a war, how do you financially profit?
Right.
When you're funding it, is it because the country you're funding is owing you? Like they need to give you, they're in debt to you. Is that why?
But I think in some cases, when a country is invited to get involved in war, many times they get contracts to rebuild the country.
Yeah.
So for example, some countries which it was totally bombed in the last 10, 15 years, they're the same countries who get the contracts to do all the reconstructions, do the water, do the electrical. So it means huge amount of contracts. So the contracts to rebuild, that's one thing. The second aspect is that somebody has to pay for all these fighter jets and this military artillery use. So every bullet that fire, every plane that fire, somebody has to pay for that. That's not charity. So for example, in Donald Trump policy, he was quite clear that he's not getting involved in the war, and it's because he wants to keep American resources for building the American society. However, as a businessman with a business mind, if he gets contracts of which every bullet that is used, every fighter jet, every aspect of his military is being, he get paid for it. Why would he refuse getting paid for it? In addition to that, if it turned out that their actions were illegal, makes no difference. If you do something illegal, there's consequences. If global powers was to do something illegal in a war, who goes to prison? Do you know of any power, global power, living today that ever went to prison or faced legal consequences for doing something in a war?
No, only the losing side goes to prison for the war.
Winners
Right.
don't go to prison.
What?
Winner, there's no legal.
It's true.
Yeah, because there's something called due process.
Okay.
If you were suspected of a crime, or you actually did the crime, there's something called due process. So the question is, if Mars and Jupiter, whichever planet, is suspected of intending to do a crime or has done a crime, there is due process. You must observe due process. Because if there's no due process, then it becomes the wild, wild west.
Yeah.
So the question is, whether it's Iran, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, whichever, when we have countries of power that are democratic, there should be some due process. In due process, there are consequences. Otherwise, there's no power. So if you have an international court of rights, human rights, if that international court don't have the power to actually punish people,
Okay.
it's not really effective. No one will take you serious. No one will take you serious if you don't have the power to send people to prison, or you don't have the power to enact punishment on those whom you found guilty. You're just powerless. You're just there to keep people busy or to give them hope, false hope.
Yeah. Agreed. Are we debating something? Because I agree with you.
Well, we're sharing views and perspectives, and perhaps we could learn by just expressing our view. So I may have a view, and I may express my view, you may make a comment, and it will create a new view. So I'm forever changing my views and improving it closer to the truth.
Okay.
So as I was saying before, whenever there's a war, one of the casualties of war is propaganda, lies, falsehood, and delusion. So if you look at the Iraq war, it's a great war, about 1 million people died, but the foundation of that war was based on what?
Oil.
Well, oil, but also misinformation.
There's always misinformation.
Colin Powell said that the information he had was wrong, and the information that he gave to Congress to approve of the war in Iraq was not true. He said, it's only because I receive it. He said, I didn't manufacture it. Wrong information was given to me. I take it and I give it to you. So the question is, sometimes in order to engineer much wars of the past, they were based on false information. So the question is, if we jump on a high horse, meaning to say we hear a narrative, we fall for the narrative, then more likely in 5 years from now, 3 years from now, we come to realize actually we supported a war based on wrong information. So hence the reason why we have to isolate and identify the falsehood, the delusion, the propaganda, and the misinformation before we lodge our support.
Right. I also
So when we identify falsehood, then it puts us in a better position to register our support or to protest our critics.
Okay, so falsehood I think is also up to interpretation because like everywhere there's propaganda, right? And it's really a matter of what side you're on. I mean, I think that everyone has a point, basically, because there's like equally smart people that are on are in different religions and in different political orientations. There's smart people. So, just because someone's smart and does their due diligence doesn't mean that they're free of bias because they are still their own person.
But there's a way to test a claim. Someone makes a claim, you can test that claim. So what country are you from?
I'm from Canada.
Canada. So if I say Canada has evil intentions to commit a mass crime against humanity,
Okay.
I made that claim.
Okay.
Right. The question is, we can test that claim. So if this gentleman come and say, you have a gun on you, right?
Yeah.
The police come. The police says, I heard you have a gun on you.
Okay.
You can come and say, well, listen to me, officer. You can charge me, you could put me in prison.
Okay.
Or you can examine that claim
Yeah.
and establish my evidence.
Okay.
So then you will present the officer the opportunity to examine you, search your bag, search you in a way compliance to law, to examine that claim. So claims can be tested and examined. So if I come and say Iran has evil intentions and they have the ability to do X, Y, and Z, there's a way in which we can test that claim. But I cannot make a claim just like that and act upon the claim.
Act upon a
So
claim.
it's not within our thinking that a British police officer will say, I accuse you of this and you're going to jail for it.
Okay.
If they want to accuse you, there's a due process of law.
I get that, but it's also hard to figure out if a country has something, right? We'll never know because all countries
Of
hide.
course we know.
All
We
countries
can-
hide shit. Nobody discloses everything. So how are you supposed to know? Also, anyone can be like, Iran has evil intentions. But then just because they have a weapon doesn't mean they're going to use it, and that could be propaganda, right? So it's like whether they have it or not, we'll never know, and whether they want to use it to harm someone, we'll never know, right? So it's like.
But Iran been talking rubbish for a long time. Iran talks rubbish for a long time. It comes like, when I say rubbish, I mean specifically, we will do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do that. They talk crap for a long time, and I think it puts them on the stage, it gives them attention, and I think their aim is to gain global support from the Muslim world as though they are the champions and defenders and vanguards of the Muslim world. And I think in many cases, Iran challenges Saudi Arabia to be representative voices and defenders of the Muslim world. So they talk a lot of talk, but the question is, despite it making all these threats, the threats can be serious, but the question is, you can only punish them based on the actions. So I may have bad intentions, I may make threats, and my threats might be criminal. It might be criminal, my threats. However, I don't think in any judicial system I will go to prison or I will get a death sentence on the basis of my intention or threat. So if I said, somebody, I'm driving my car, somebody drive you bad. Oh, I wish I'd do this to you. In the moment. Doesn't mean to say I should go to prison for 25 years for that.
Unless you say, I'm going to kill you, that's uttering threats.
Yes, I mean, there's legal consequences for that. But then a court now will say, this is a big mouter, or he has the ability to carry out that. So for example, he's been making them threats since he's a child. He's been saying, he does everybody that. You know, so the question is, there is a context to everything. But all my argument is, whatever we do as a nation, whatever we do as a powerful nation, there is due process. There should be. And if you do not observe due process, then one day someone else will do the same thing to you, and then you will cry out, where's the due process? Justify that. And then you say, you broke the rules, so we break the rules. So if we break the rules saying we can do to each other without due process, then it opens the door for cowboy,
don't you think
Wild West.
Everybody that breaks the rule doesn't believe that the rule applies to them?
Well, that's the thing about power.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
No one ever thinks that the bad thing is going to happen to them, right? Just because they do the bad thing to others.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah.
But I think we have to be honest. We have to be loyal to the truth. We have to understand life is sacred, and we must take responsibility. And there is a lot of misinformation in this world. And whenever there's a war, millions are spent on propaganda, millions are spent on lies, millions are spent on deception and delusion. Satan is a deceiver. He's the arch deceiver. He's the chief deceiver. And Satan loves wars. And one of the instruments is wars is deception. So if you're making a judgment or you're holding a strong view, you must be able to separate the truth from the falsehood and distinguish the lies, the falsehood, and the delusion in order to make a fair judgment.
I agree.
Yeah.
Now we all come from different ideologies, right? And we all have a mix of different ideologies. I think we're all on a spectrum. So I guess that looks different to everyone. I don't know if there's an absolute truth.
Well, you can not know it if you want.
Yeah.
That's a claim that there's no truth. But the question is this: if someone slap you wrongfully, and someone says, he didn't slap me, you will come to the conclusion there is a definite truth, because it affects you. If there's a narrative of truth somewhere else, and I want to avoid taking sides on that truth, I will say, well, I'm not sure if there's an absolute truth. That might be his opinion, that might be subjective, or it could be this. So people play these wavering games, but when it comes to them on their doorstep, they come and realize. So if somebody was to harm the people that you love, and someone said, the people that you love never existed, and there was never harm, and you say, it is true, it is true. You scream it is true. But if it happens to someone else, of which you don't want to take sides, you say, well, it might be subject. It's just a matter how you feel about it. It's just feelings. So we play these kind of games. This is true.
You're right, though.
So we play these games. So for example, if someone was to talk about the crimes of Israel, many people don't want to be on the wrong side of power. They don't want to be on the wrong side of Israel. Many people, I understand that. You'll get checked It can affect, if you're a public servant, it can affect you. If you're in government, it can affect you. If you're traveling, it can affect you. But the question is, when you want to avoid speaking the truth, because speaking the truth might have consequences because of the power of which you're in opposition to. You can just play that kind of game, but I'm not sure. There's no real truth.
Yeah.
That's just his view and her view. You can play that game.
Yeah.
I get that. I get that.
Yeah.
But the question is, I have an ideology. You speak the truth.
You have
There's
to-
consequences. We ask Allah to help us.
I think that in order to, like, you have to be really connected to the thing. Like, you know, it has to really affect you and affect your life in order for you to be completely sold on an ideology that there's an absolute truth, right?
But you believe there's an absolute truth.
I don't know.
You don't know.
I am lucky enough to be one of those people. Like, I didn't grow up in Israel. I didn't, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
You're an
what it's
educated
like.
woman.
Yeah.
What is your educational background?
Well, I have a background in sociology and psychology,
Well, good. Well,
and I'm studying business.
right.
So I have the
So there's a
privilege.
definitive. So in sociology, there's definitions. In sociology, there are boundaries.
Yeah, they're
There's,
boundaries.
yeah, there's boundaries and definitions,
Yeah.
social class,
Yeah.
and there's the study of groups and society,
Yeah.
social conflict.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we can say definitely there's difference.
Salam alaikum, my brother.
Long time, man.
Yeah, I only came back on Tuesday.
Welcome back. Good to have you. So there's a difference. If there's a definitive, there's a clarity on right and wrong, truth and falsehood, then we can safely say, for a fact, there's right and wrong. There's black and white. There's truth and falsehood. There's summer and there's winter. But for us to come and say, I want to avoid God's truth, so I will play a game, well, we really don't know what is night or day. Because day could be night, night could be day. And we can avoid these on one level because we want to avoid a greater truth. So I think some people, they avoid saying there's right and wrong, there's justice and injustice, there's truth and falsehood. They avoid that because if they accept that, accepting that will lead them to ultimate truth. And they want to avoid the ultimate truth.
Why do they want to avoid the ultimate truth?
Because if you avoid truth, you avoid responsibility. So for example, truth is light. When light is present, it guides you to that which is productive and progressive and good. And when you're in darkness, you become free of blame when you commit harm.
Okay.
So if it's darkness, I bump into you,
Yeah.
then I'm excused.
Yeah.
But in light, in truth, I have to be upon justice
Fair.
because it's clear. So prophets were sent with truth and light and guidance and justice. And when you acknowledge that, you have responsibility. You take responsibility. But when you deny that, like denying the day of judgment, is because we don't want discipline. So if I want the freedom to do whatever I like, I'm going to feel guilty if I believe in the hereafter. If I believe in life after death, I become responsible and I will feel guilt if I do something wrong. If I deny the day of judgment, I deny God, I deny justice, and I break down everything. Truth is just how you feel, whatever you think. It's relative, it's subjective. Then I have the freedom to do whatever I like because I can justify it.
But don't you think that if you, like, it's not just external, extrinsic rewards and punishments that drive a person to live a good life, right? Because I think it's also very intrinsic. Because, like, let's say you don't necessarily believe in God and the light, right? But you believe that it's wrong to do something to someone that you don't want them to do to you. So you follow that. And then that makes you work to be a good person. Right? So I mean, sure, there's like okay, there's like a lot of grays in good and bad, but you usually know whether you want something to be done to you, right? And I mean, depending on who you are, you can want different things to not be done to you, but there's some pretty universal things,
Yeah.
right?
Here was my thing is, if someone decides to follow natural law,
Yeah,
So natural law is, if you don't want this to be done to you, don't do it to others.
Yeah, exactly.
That's natural law.
Yeah.
Divine law, natural law.
Yeah.
If you follow that with sincerity, it will open your heart towards God who creates nature,
Okay.
and he made these natural laws. You'll bring closeness to him.
Okay.
Right. So if one is honest and truthful about the truth and they follow natural law, it will open their heart towards God.
Okay.
Right. But the question is, whenever you close your heart towards God, it opens the door for tyranny.
But can you get closer to the truth, but not necessarily because of God?
It's not possible.
Why?
God is the author of all truth.
Okay.
He's the author of truth.
Okay.
So for example, if someone make an engine and I study each part of that engine, every time I master the understanding of that engine, I get closer to understanding the engineer.
Okay.
If you understand creation, natural law, and you're sincere and loyal to truth, it will open your heart towards God. It will lead you there.
Okay.
So I believe the more you study the engine, the closer you get to becoming an engineer, and you will understand the intent of the engineer. You'll understand his mindset. So God, like for example, there's something in your nature that is inside of you that wants to know the truth. You want to know, you say, this is my mother. But if there's doubt, you will want to know that. You feel safe to know, this is my father. But if there's doubt, you will want to know the truth. So the human being wants to know the truth. If there's doubt that whether at the end of the month you will get paid, you will want to know the truth about this. If a mechanic is repairing your car, your brakes, and you're not sure whether he's qualified, if he's doing the right thing, you will want to know the truth. So the human being must want to know the truth. You get sick on your bed, and people tell you there's life after death, you start thinking, might that be the truth? What if it's not? You want to know the truth. But the question is, when you do not want to know the truth, it's because you want to dismiss your guilt, you don't want responsibility, and you don't want discipline, you want the freedom to follow your desires.
But do you think that truth is different for everyone? Because you can want to know the truth, but then you cannot believe that something is the truth, and then something else can be the truth for you.
In some things, but not everything. So some things, truth is a matter of perception.
Yeah.
But in some things, truth is absolute. You don't have any issues it being 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the day away in London.
Right.
That's not a matter of opinion. That's definitive. That's clear. It's conclusive. It's not up for debate. Right.
But
so
we all agree that. We all agree with it, right?
No,
Because-
you haven't met my mother,
No.
but you know I have a mom.
Yeah.
Right. So the question is, the creation is an intelligent design.
Okay.
So the creation being so intelligent, the human is intelligent. The trees' relationship with the planet, the sun relationship with the planet, all of that is intelligently working together for survival and existence. So if there is a creator, that creator has to be massively intelligent. So if someone makes a watch, and that watch is considered to be smart and intelligent, then the maker of the watch is 10 times more smarter.
Unless we use AI.
So even the AI doesn't feed itself, it didn't make itself.
Right. We have to be
You-
it so far.
AI did not make itself. A computer doesn't put itself on, and the computer still need us to
Yeah.
program it, to find viruses, to upgrade it, and whatever.
So far.
Yes. So yes, so the question is, the reality is, mankind is still dependent. He's a dependent being. His existence is dependent on other factors. And the other factors is dependent on other factors. And it goes right back, who is the source that provides that we are all dependent upon?
Okay.
But I get the point why people choose to ignore this ultimate truth.
Can you tell me what is the ultimate truth?
The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the greatest of all knowledge, the beginning of wisdom is to know God.
Okay.
And there's something about you and we want to know where this whole story started. And something about you and I will want to know where it ends. Now today, we have smartphones. You have a good job. You're young, you're beautiful, you're smart, you're everything. You might pretend as if you don't know. The day a sickness come on you, and age started telling you, and you end up in a dying bed where you're looking at doctors for help. And they say, then you start thinking, I'm wondering, might it be a hereafter? I'm wondering. So in an age whereby people flourish with technology and wealth, we could play games. We don't need God. We don't need God. We can play these games. But there's a time will come when all that we depend on cannot help us, and we're going to question ourselves, is that true? We do really need God, and we are reliant and dependent on other things.
Right. I mean, I guess another thing is we want to leave a legacy, right? We want to make sure that whatever it is, like, we don't just leave without a trace.
Yeah,
Somehow have a need to affect people, right? And have good relationships with people.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.